we're all thinking the same thing right now. Who's gonna say it? I'm not gonna say it.
Well, I'm definitely not going to say it, Drew. You say it.
It's great.
I don't want to say it. I didn't want to admit it.
You texted me immediately after finishing this movie, and this is for all the listeners out there. Badway said, "I think," and then he waited, and then he said, "It's great," with a question mark, and I thought he was messing with me. I don't like you sharing my private text to you, Drew, to the world. So if you would kindly release the Badway text hashtag.
They're locked up tight.
Welcome back to the Last Row Podcast. This is episode 76. Jack Snyder.
Jack Snyder made a movie?
Zack Snyder's JOSStice League, a.k.a. Release the Snyder Cut, the Snyder Cut. This is it, man. The unicorn. I never thought we would ever be talking about this movie on this show.
You've been waiting your whole life for this moment.
No, I mean, honestly, if you would have told me 3 years ago that this movie would have ever been made, I mean, there was things on Twitter like, oh, maybe Superman wore a black suit in this cut. Oh, it was real, And the fact that it actually happened, I can't believe we're here. So, if you're looking for our website, thelastrowpodcast.com, follow us on Twitter at The Last Row Pod, Facebook.com/The Last Row Pod. Head out to Spotify, subscribe on there, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you find your podcast, check us out. But we're back, man. 76
episodes, and number 76, we are doing the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's, as Drew says, JOSStice League. I mean, it's almost like it's a different director. The movie's actually really freaking good. I mean, it must be Zack Snyder doing this. I kid. I like Zack Snyder. I like him. No, but so we're doing the Snyder Cut from JOSStice League. It just came out on, I don't know, what would you call it? March 18th. We're recording this on the 21st, 2021. And this is not going to be a normal episode of The Last Row. It's more of a rapid reaction because it's such a big deal to one of us in The Last Row.
Clearly not
family.
Me.
No.
Clearly not me.
Yeah. It's it's such a controversial and I don't know, what would you say? It's been anticipated, highly anticipated. It's been in the making for years and years.
Honestly, I'm going to catch a lot of flack for saying this, and I don't mean it because of what it is. It's a historical moment for this type of thing to come out after all this speculation.
And we'll talk about it, if that's a good thing or not. We'll get into all that. But yeah, we decided it's a pretty big deal as far as movie making goes, not just whether the movie's good or bad. But we decided to do a rapid react rather than a nostalgic trip down memory lane as we normally do. So, without further ado, Zack Snyder's JOSStice League 2021, directed by Zack. Don't
Jack
call
Snyder.
me Jack Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
An action, adventure, fantasy, superhero revenge film. IMDb 8.5 out of 10. Drew?
Too low.
We're on Tomatoes 74%.
Way too low.
Metacritic 57%.
Way too low.
Drew's wants those hundreds. Wants those big faced hundreds.
Let me tell you though, I'm blown away that has a 74 on Rotten Tomatoes. I did not expect that. And I'm gonna come across as the fanboy here, but I'm really not. I'm really not.
I think it's an ironic 74%.
Yeah. It's like, oh, look at, he did it. Good job.
Oh, he did it. Yeah, they're patronizing him.
They're patting him on the back. He made a movie.
All right, let's get this thing going. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity, Zack Snyder finishes his movie. No, inspired by Superman. I'm going to call him Jack Snyder for the rest of my life now. Thank you. All right. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists newfound ally Diana Prince to face an even greater threat. Together, Batman and Wonder Woman work quickly to recruit a team to stand against this newly awakened enemy. Despite the formation of an unprecedented league of heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, and The Flash, it may be too late to save the planet from an assault of catastrophic proportions. Drew, that just sounded like a bunch of words thrown together.
I pulled whatever was from Google there. There was probably, I could have probably written a better one than that, but I could have
improv'd a better thing than that, but we're going to go on from that. It's fine.
It was, fine. So this movie, normally we talk about the financials and the return, but this movie had come out obviously in what was it? 20, was it, I forgot what year.
16? 17?
2017.
Yeah.
Right, the original, and that was the as some people like to call it now, the JOSStice League version, the totally meddled version. That movie, I don't even remember what the budget was, but Zack Snyder had $70 million for reshoots for this, and he took $0 salary so that he could have 100% full creative control. How do you even project the returns on this right now? Because I don't know. I mean, we're like 3 days in.
I don't even know. Like, I was going to ask you about the economics of streaming platforms. Like, how does Warner Brothers make their money back? How do they make that 70 million back? Like, why would they make this movie is my question. Like, I'm not questioning that it's a good movie. I'm like, why would they make this movie?
My general feeling on this is two things. One, streaming subscriptions, because, people are going to buy a ticket to a movie theater at $15 a pop. Okay, let's get a month of HBO Max for $15. And hey, I forgot to cancel. Or you know what? Hey, they have some pretty other good content on here. I'm not going to cancel because I'd be signing up for this regardless for Mortal Kombat coming out in a couple weeks. And,
right.
For this, like that is one. And then the second one would be brand loyalty because they listen to the fans, right? I have air quotes right now, but they listen to the fans. So it's like, hey, and there are new streaming platforms. So they've got to try to compete with Netflix. And this is a huge get for them.
I guess HBO and HBO Max. Max is I guess is still relatively new.
As Christopher Nolan
so they own Warner, or Warner owns HBO, or one way or the other. Is that what it is?
AT&T owns Warner, and Warner owns HBO, but it's a big giant conglomeration. But yeah, it's a new streaming service. Christopher Nolan, and some would call it the worst streaming service. But
so you think that they'd be able to tell just from new subscribers, people who are signing up just for JOSStice League, to see if it was a success? Dishing out this money to gain X amount of subscribers?
Generally with analytics, there's going to be some way for them to find that out. They're probably looking at it, some combination of, new subscribers, how many people stream this movie, because there's existing subscribers too, but I'm sure that they have some cut of it that they can see. But my guess would be that, there was a huge, huge, huge fan following for this for years, right? No one ever thought it would happen. I'm sure that they got a lot of buzz for this because it's an easy thing, right? I mentioned to you before, like music streaming. People used to pirate music all the time until it was easier to pay $10 a month for Spotify because it's just easier. And this to me is that, like, you're going to get a lot of people that just want to check this out. It's like, it's a 4-hour movie. Like, who makes that?
Right.
I think people just want to know, like, even if I don't even really care about JOSStice League, like, let me go see what everyone's talking about. I bet they got a lot of subscribers. Gut feel.
So you're not a movie prognosticator, or you're not an analyst or a statistician. I mean, maybe you are. I don't know what you're doing in your free time besides this podcast.
Actuary scientist.
Do you think that they're gonna? Because as you think about it in terms of, all right, JOSStice League in 2017, even though it's an inferior movie, it made $1 billion, right? Or somewhere around there,
right?
900 some million, whatever it was, I forget. Do you think that they're banking on, all right, if a small percentage of those $1 billion subscribe to HBO Max, they're going to do it now, or at least try it out and maybe become, monthly by month by year subscription holders?
I think so. I mean, look, I don't know how Netflix does it. It's interesting because you got stuff like The Irishman coming out and other big kind of director type movies that are coming out to Netflix now. And in fact, Zach, Don't Call Me Jack Snyder has that, what is it, Army of the Dead coming out with Dave Bautista coming out soon on Netflix. And there's other Netflix movies that are coming out. I mean, I think the cool thing about this type of thing is that you would never have a 4-hour movie in the theater because the economics of it don't make sense, because they need to have X amount of screens play this movie X amount of times per day in X amount of theaters to get their return. So, I'm very curious about the economics of this because I think it's a good thing, in my opinion, for this type of thing to happen. It's cool.
Well, Christopher Nolan says it's killing the movie industry. So.
I mean, he says a lot of things, and I respect his opinion too. But, I think that, I'm not going to expect to go watch his next movie on this streaming exclusively. but I think there's a market for maybe direct to streaming, like high budget type movies that are this type of thing, maybe a 4-hour type of movie.
Now, you mentioned that they don't have 4-hour movies in the theaters because, run times and they want to show the movie X amount of times in a day.
Yeah.
But I disagree. I think it's because my ass hurts after about 2.7 hours. That's my limit. That's my limit. Yeah. Like however long The Departed was, that's the limit.
Well, I mean,
1 minute after Departed is my ass hurts and I'm ready to go.
Well, what was the Endgame was like 3 hours and 1 minute. And I have this later in the notes, but this is officially the longest superhero film released in the 2020s.
Oh, I believe it.
But you can't even really call it a movie because, and I know we'll get into this, but it's like a 7-episode thing that literally is one file.
And
one file.
And I have questions on that. And I swear that's like our catchphrase is we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But we will get to that later.
The Last Row podcast, we'll get to that later.
One more thing. I wanted to piggyback one more thing off of what you said earlier about fans. Do you think it's good to have fans demand a movie into existence the way they did for this movie?
And here's why. And I have a very strong take on this. Yes. Because what's the point of making any of the shit anyway? For real. Like, it's for the fans. Like, and I think what you see for a lot of this stuff, they should be making stuff for the fans. That's the whole point of anything.
They want these people to buy, trinkets and buy the tickets, buy the trinkets, buy the toys, buy the movies, buy the games.
Yeah. But here's why I feel very strongly about this. Whether you like this movie or not, I don't care. I liked it. I'm just going to come out and say it. I liked it. But I think this is a good thing because what you see in the past, and especially with Warner Brothers, you get studio meddling on everything because they're worried about what's this image, what's that. Clearly, people wanted this. They liked what they were seeing before, even though the studio decided that they didn't want to see that. Right. And maybe it had critically bad reviews, but most of these movies, fans did like them, regardless. Yeah. But the thing is, you've got these studio suits, not to quote Billy Walsh here from Entourage, but they're suits, right? And they don't know. They're not looking at the vision. And that's something I agree with Nolan on, right? There's a reason you make this stuff. It's for people who want to watch it. They like it.
Right.
So it's not like some marketing executive that thinks how they're going to position it. It's annoying to me.
I guess there's something that I can't get my head wrapped around is that the 2017 Justice League that was just marred by, this, that, and the other thing, the tragedy of Snyder's family, and then picking it up from Joss Whedon, who may or may not have cared more about the project than Snyder did.
Right.
So I don't know. Or maybe he was just being a yes man to the studio and, hey, make it more like Marvel. But let's be real. That movie was a polished turd for the most part. Like it was fine. It was okay, but more bad than good. And it still made $1 billion.
Right.
So in the studio's defense, what does it matter if the movie's good or not? If everyone's going to go out and see it. And then if they made another one and it was equally as mediocre and it's still going to make $900 million to $1 billion, then what is, I don't know, what's the point in resurrecting old stuff for quote unquote for the fans if you're a studio? I'm just talking from a suit perspective.
That's why I'm saying to you, I think this is a good thing because the fans did it. The fans got something that actually they cared about versus some crap that's shoved down their throat that makes money anyway. Because, and here's where I'm going with this. Like, and maybe I'm going to sound like an artsy fartsy snob, but the thing is when, it's like almost people that complain about like pop music, right? It's like, oh, it's so commercial. Like, who cares? It has no talent. It's just whatever, right? You could almost look at certain movies in the same way. And I'm not talking about any specific movie in general, but you look at maybe the Justice League movie from then. It's like, it still made $1 billion. Okay, what does that say? Like, from them, it means that the studios are lazy and they're just going to do whatever they can to make a buck. But who suffers from that? Like the fans that wanted something like this. So the fact that people were passionate enough to go and like wish something into existence and really rally around it, whether you like Snyder or not, you got to admit that's pretty cool. And I get that people are now like, oh, well, why aren't they going to, now they're going to demand a David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. Now they're going to demand this cut. This actually happened before, by the way. This happened. So really? Superman 2, Richard Donner, there was a Richard Donner cut that was released. So it's not like this is the first time something like this has ever happened.
That's what I'm going to get at here. I was wondering, what's the line? Like, I think back of a couple years ago, I remember Sonic the Hedgehog, something stupid like Sonic, where everyone was furious about the way Sonic looked. Oh, he has teeth. Oh, he looks too human. And the movie grinded to a halt so they could redraw Sonic in a stupid Sonic the Hedgehog movie. which, yeah, he looks stupid, but like, does it matter? Because the same amount of kids were going to go see it, and just some of the people that are, frankly, our age, that are just nostalgic for it, get a little butthurt about it, and they went ahead and they changed the movie because of it. So I'm afraid that something like this could slow down movie making in the future, and also stunt creativity of new content, because people are going to be scrambling to redo old content.
No,
is that paranoia on my part?
No,
or?
I think you're. Well, I'm gonna tell you why I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different situation with Sonic. That was purely, and I agree with what you're saying on that. It was a visual thing. It wasn't, hey, this movie isn't good. It was like, hey, we didn't like this. Did they need to do that? No, they didn't. But it didn't mean that the movie was going to change. Like they changed the CG of it and the way it looked, but they didn't change the story that was clearly meddled. So when you look at releasing other content or cuts, like from my perspective, who cares if they change? Like if they want to release the David Ayer cut, sure. If they want to go spend money on that, great. If they don't do it, okay. But like this was clearly, there was something going on behind the scenes here. They were meddling and all this kind of stuff where, I mean, there was a lot of reports that came out about what was going on with this. I think fans demanding this is different than demanding a different view of Sonic, like a picture. Like, I don't know. This is more story, more, hey, this guy had a vision going this way. I like that vision. I want to see more of that, versus like, they completely just changed the look of a character. Now, maybe you would disagree, but I think it's a little different, in my opinion.
I'm not really going anywhere with this as far as like, I don't have a soapbox stand or anything like that. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But like in the future, let's say a Spider-Man movie gets made, and it's made by, I don't know, a well-respected director who, I don't know, let's say Christopher Nolan does Spider-Man, right? And the studio gets a hold of it, and they do something to it that maybe Christopher Nolan says something about, wants to detach his name from, right? Are people going to demand the Nolan cut? Or are people going to demand this cut and that cut of movies? Like, I'm just afraid of movies being the same. We worry about remakes being done. I'm worried about the same movies being remade and recut versus just moving on to the next thing. This didn't work. Let's move on to the next thing.
But I don't think, and here's the last thing I'll say on it, and it kind of gets into our next topic, right? Artistic freedom. Just in general, I think it's less of the same, because you've got the director's actual vision versus something that's diluted into what's going to make money from a popular standpoint. Whereas like you could argue most of these like disaster films, like we do The Day After Tomorrow, right? That's the same movie being made over and over because it makes money. Like this,
there's a formula to it.
That's what I'm saying. Like a 4-hour movie, like clearly look up Zack Snyder on Rotten Tomatoes. The guy's divisive. Like, let's just be serious about that, right? So seeing his cut of the movie, I don't think that's going to dilute anything. In my opinion, I think it'll push it more the other way. And most of these things are already done. Like there's director cuts on DVD all the time. So
and
it's, I don't know, it's the same to me.
And I'm all for the artistic freedom. In fact, like it's shown through in this movie, because it's definitely better than the 2017 version, even at 4 hours, even though the runtime is ridiculous. It was still, I thought it was a great movie. And I know, like, obviously you do too. I'm just wondering, like, did my life change because this was released? Or can I just remember 2017 Justice League as being in production hell and moving on with my life without the perfect Justice League cut that actually did come out?
I think what you'll see is, and I want to talk about this right now with the artistic freedom, right? Clearly this guy was asked to set up an entire cinematic universe in like 2 movies. Whereas you look at the other side and it's impossible not to compare it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is very successful and very good, by the way, which I like. They had multiple movies and they did it the right way. They let it breathe, and the studio didn't breathe down their neck. And here's the thing that I'll say about this, the fact that he was allowed to do what he wanted, that to me is always a good thing. When you let the director, like, in a vacuum, right? In a vacuum, the director has the vision, not some studio executive suit.
Yeah.
And if he's allowed to tell the story he wants to, I think that's a good thing. And I want to ask you about the movie length, because you alluded to it. Like, this movie is 4 hours and 4 hours plus. I thought that was a good thing, in my opinion, because of the fact that it was released on streaming. Now, if you ask me, do I want to see a 4-hour movie in the theater? Probably not. That is too long. But the fact that they had debates about Will they release it in chapters? Will they release it as full length? Will they release it as episodes? Like, I see no difference in releasing this versus a miniseries outside of the fact that it was literally like one file versus 5 different files I had to play. So I didn't care about the length because he clearly divided it into chapters where you could absolutely pause. You could walk away for a day. Like, it didn't matter to me, but did the length bother you being 4 hours? Like, did you find it too long?
No, I mean, I fell asleep a few times, but that's a me problem. You know, I fall asleep during a 2-hour movie.
I mean, I think I tweeted at the Last Row Pod, you know, how many times will you fall asleep? Do you remember how many it was?
It was 3, and I rewound once. So I fell asleep within the first hour, like half hour, really, right around the Amazonian fight. Yeah. And, the first one was when Wonder Woman thwarted the terrorist plot in the first 25 minutes.
You fell asleep during that?
Yes. And Drew, let me tell you something about me, an audience out there. I fall asleep during the action scenes of movies.
He does.
I will.
I'm pretty sure he fell asleep.
Yeah, I fell asleep during the loudest movie ever, which is the finale of Man of Steel. So, and I will be more awake and alert during story exposition of movies. That's just the way I am. I don't know. I'll fall asleep during the best action scenes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I don't know. Just fall asleep.
I'll never forget. And this is for all the listeners out there. We were watching Man of Steel in the theater, and whoever was working the theater, and again, we used to be in the movie business, right? I know what the volume should be because I worked as a projectionist. Like, whoever was working the projection booth that day, like, had it turned to 11.
It was to 11.
And it was like clipping. Like, the audio was so jacked up that it was actually like clipping. Yeah. And my ears were like hurting so bad. And I looked over to my right, and Badway's sitting there sleeping. Like, buildings are falling over. Yeah. The city's getting destroyed as everyone hated. And Badway's sitting there sleeping.
But let me tell you, when Henry Cavill is just crying in the arms of Kevin Costner, I'm full attention.
I mean, I don't know.
I got my eyes glued.
Would you think this would have worked better as being released kind of like on a weekly series or a chapter type thing? Or?
Yeah, but again, that's like changing the business, right?
Right.
I like to separate my shows from my movies. Like, there's a big difference between say Game of Thrones, you know, a 10 episode episodic epic.
Yeah.
Versus a movie that you split into like faux chapters, which this kind of was. Like,
that's the truth.
Like, they cut it at like I remember right when chapter 1 was ending in Justice League, I was like, this is a good time for them to stop. And not 20 seconds later, black screen, new chapter. So like, they did it well, but I don't like movies being cut into chapter. Like, I watched The Hateful Eight recently on Netflix.
Is that the one where they made that? They did that. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, they made it. They made the director's cut or whatever it was, the long cut, into like 4 or 5 different episodes, and it's fine. But I preferred the slightly shorter, but all the way through Hateful Eight.
How long was that one, by the way? I'm not sure. I didn't watch it.
Oh, I forget. It's pushing 3 hours, maybe slightly, like 3 hours? Maybe slightly over, maybe a 3:05. I could be wrong, but it's right around there. It's not 4, but it's certainly not 2. It's more than 2.
I mean, I'll be honest.
It might be 240, 250, something like that.
I watched this. I think I started it at like 10. Whenever it was after 2 a.m. when I finished it, and I've been, you know.
Yeah, I never could have done that. I did it during the day on Saturday.
But to be honest, it didn't feel that long to me.
No,
like, I know that the beginning is slow and it's a slow burn, and I even texted you that ahead of time. I'm like, this is kind of slow. Like, I was wondering if you were going to like it or not because the beginning is pretty slow. But when it kind of got halfway, I thought, wow, okay, like I didn't feel like it was that long. And the experience itself, I was really enjoying it. I'm like, this is kind of cool. I'm sitting here instead of in the theater. Yeah, no,
I liked watching it from home, and I agreed it's the way to do it versus 4 hours in the theater. But I don't know. This is the problem to me with artistic freedom is this guy, you give this guy 4 hours to make this movie. Like, he had to make the movie 4 hours for the movie to be good. Well, and he did a great job. But that's not also that I know you're going to say that's not also his fault. That's the studio's fault.
No, that's not where I was going to go. I would say that too. Yeah. But what I was going to say was, I think he made it 4 hours because he could here. It was kind of like, hey man, these people have been waiting since, 2017 for this thing, this mythical thing. Let me use everything.
Let's give him everything. Give him everything I got.
I think he could have done this in the theater for like a little over 3 hours, maybe 3 hours and 5. Like there could have been stuff that was cut, or they could have split the movie into 2. Like you suggested that too, which was
I wanted to ask you that. Yeah, what do you think about now? Now from now on, we might give away slight spoilers. So if you
haven't
didn't see
it,
the movie, this is a good time to stop and come
That's
back
a
after
good
you've seen the
point.
movie. But I think everybody knows that Superman is dead from the previous movie, from Batman vs Superman.
Right.
I think a good stopping point would be like as they're resurrecting Superman. You know, the Flash is going through with the cube, and I don't know the terms. You know the terms better than I do.
Mother box.
The mother box. There you go. The mother box. When they put him in the pool, Flash does the thing. You resurrect him. That's a great cliffhanger, and people would be pissed that the movie ends in the theater right there. But you tell me everyone is going to go see part 2.
I think they would, but here's why I'd be hesitant to do that. As put my suit on here. I'll be a suit studio guy. I think the beginning of that movie is too slow, and I feel like people would walk away like nothing happened.
Okay.
That would be my big concern there. So I think they'd probably have to cut that down a lot and make it go further.
Well, here's the thing then. If they had the ability to say, all right, Zach, we're going to give you 2 movies, you know, part 1, part 2, then he could adjust for that. He might have. Knowing that, maybe he could have made a more action-centered beginning or, you know, changed up some of the slow spots. You know, he could have made 4.5 hours of movie if he knew he had 2 movies to do it. And
he might have. I think, I'll be honest with you, I think the reason why it was 4 hours was because it could be 4 hours. And I think it was this never really happened before type thing. It's like, let me give him everything.
But obviously it was strong enough to be 4 hours. It could have been longer. So they could have and should have made 2 movies out of this. And if it was done this way, they would have been 2 commercially successful movies too. Because you can't tell me this movie released in the theater. By the way, I pointed to my TV, even though you're not even like in the room. Or nobody's watching me.
Hey man,
this
our
movie
listeners are looking out your window right now.
Yeah. This movie released in theaters, cut into 2, but done in this way, there's no way it would have been a critical failure. Like, obviously, it's a great movie. As far as, I mean, with caveat as superhero movies go, I'm going to say.
Here's what I'll say, though, and I'm going to say something controversial right now. The Last Row podcast, Cullen, we'll get into that later, but let me say this later. Right now. Let me say that right now. Like, I don't think the world was ready for this movie at the time that it came out. And I don't mean that because it's so good.
I don't think you're ready.
No,
okay, you're ready.
I think here's where I'm going with that. I know it sounds ridiculous. Where I'm going with that is people hated Batman v Superman so much that I think whatever this was going to be, people weren't ready for it. And honestly, Marvel was killing it at the time, and they still are. They were killing it so hard, and they were kind of like with Infinity War and Endgame and all this stuff, right, coming out, they were at the pinnacle that whatever came out here was always going to be inferior. It just didn't matter. The fact that people hated Batman v Superman, they hated it. It was like a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, that movie is not for everybody. I enjoyed it, but I could understand why people would hate that movie. Like, I don't fault people for it.
So, okay.
But I don't think the world was ready for this. And I think right now, Endgame's over, MCU's going into their next phase. People kind of like looking back on this, they kind of maybe feel a little bad for Snyder with what happened with him, for this family tragedy. It's kind of like, hey, you know, there's a lot of problems that plague the set of this thing. Maybe let's see what's going on. And they maybe looked at it with fresh eyes versus like being in the moment of like that hateful, like, this guy's a hack Snyder, you know, all this stuff. So maybe the world changed their opinion a little bit. You get what I mean?
That's very well said. You know, I can't argue that. That's actually a point I never thought of before, and I like that. But let's kind of segue into our next topic here, which is, as you coin and many coin, the JOSStice League.
Oh, I can't take any credit for that. I can't take any credit for that.
So, but you brought it into my world because I didn't know it existed until you said it. You talk about Snyder having to leave the original film for family reasons, and maybe there was rumors that he was fired too. We don't know the full extent. Like, no one's really going to know the story. I don't know. What do you think the biggest differences were for this movie, and what do you think about it just in comparison to the JOSStice League movie?
So I'll say this: when I saw JOSStice League in the theater, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. I mean, it was fine. I was like, okay, it's not bad. It's whatever, right? I was just happy.
I think the 4 or 5 of us saw it together, and we all had a consensus that
it was like, it was pretty good.
Yeah, that was a movie. It was a movie. It was okay.
I think like the longer I thought about it, and the more and see, I just kind of, I mean, I played my hand, right? I liked Batman, Superman. I know, like I said, a lot of people didn't, and I get it. I understand that, but I just kind of liked it.
I thought it was cool. but it wasn't necessarily a good movie.
Right. So as a Batman fan, like, yes, they did things to
Kinda
Batman
cool.
that people would be like very upset about. Like, again, Batman with guns, you know, but I'm willing to say, you know what, it's a different take on it. Like, I know that's blasphemy. Like, some people would murder me for saying that, you know, but what I liked about it was just different, and it's something else. And I like the Nolan movies. Those are my favorite Batman movies. So I'll go back and watch those. But I was just excited to see Batman on the screen. But this movie was interesting because, you know, again, I like Henry Cavill as Superman, and I think Warner Brothers is dumb if they don't use him again. I think he's a great Superman. I love him as Superman. And I think when I watched Justice League, it was more of the guys that I liked. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to kind of get it for that. But the more I thought about it, and as the years went by, like, I own that movie. It's sitting on the shelf over there, and I haven't watched it once since we saw it in the theater. I just didn't want to go back. And I've watched because I wanted to watch Infinity War. I wanted to watch Endgame. Like, those are really good movies. Black Panther is like an amazing movie. And you go and you watch that movie, and it's just kind of like, it's fine. It didn't make any sense tonally. And when you look at this one and when you compare it, the biggest difference, if you ask me that, this movie feels like a cohesive vision from start to finish.
Real. Yeah. And I like how you said that, like the rewatchability of certain Marvel movies in comparison to the DC movies. Like, I like DC characters probably better than Marvel characters, and it's well known in this podcast. I'm not a huge superhero fan overall, but I tend to lean towards the DC characters. I have no interest in watching Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman or the old Justice League. And even though I like Marvel less, like, I would totally watch, I don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy or Endgame or Black Panther again or anything like that. Thor, right? They're totally rewatchable. But this, for some reason, this 4-hour movie, I would watch again at some point. I would like, you know what? Maybe I'll watch this. Maybe I'll watch it over a couple nights. Maybe I won't watch it as a 4-hour marathon again.
Yeah.
But it has a rewatchability to it because it's that, as you said, cohesive of a story, as you said.
Yeah. Well, and this leads us to the next transition. I want to talk a little bit more about the characters, because something that, you know, you noticed with JOSStice League, and we'll talk about this throughout when we talk a lot about Batman, Wonder Woman, some of the ways that they portrayed some of these, specifically Cyborg and Flash, to me was like the biggest night and day difference. They cut so much out of that other movie. I mean, I was watching YouTuber Jeremy Johns, like his review, and in his spoiler review, he was talking about like 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there. They had this mandate of 2 hours or less because of X amount of screens, like the stuff I was mentioning in the beginning, the economics. Like, the biggest thing to me was Wonder Woman was so much more badass in this version than the JOSStice League version. Batman, you saw him like progress. And I think, and here's what I'll say too, when you think about how people, what I was getting at before, they look back on Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and this, there is an arc. At least Batman has an arc. And when you look at how he was in Batman Superman, like, whether you like it or not, he was like this, you know, old grizzled jerk, right? He was pissed, like Robin died, like that sucks. I was mad about that. I didn't want that. But he had this arc and he wanted to kill Superman. And then through the movie, he learned, and I know in the meme moment of Martha, which is, again, kind of lame. Why did you say that? I get it. It's lame. I get it. But you look at that, clearly he was trying to maybe become something bigger. And I thought it was more apparent in this version than the other one. It just seemed like there was an actual character arc, and he was more of a leader in this than just part of a 2-hour movie where he was like doing some cool stuff. You know, and same with Wonder Woman too. Like, they just seemed like they were part of a story versus like a bunch of moments that were cut together.
Yeah, and apart from the character visions, like as we finish up the JOSStice League and his whole and the differences, I don't know, just like it struck me as crazy at just the brightness, like the color palette. Like, I know people knock on Snyder's and the DC movies for being too dark, grimdark, whatever.
Murderverse.
But when Whedon took over Justice League, and I'm sure it was a mandate of the studio to, hey, be more like Marvel. All of a sudden, they threw a fresh coat of paint on it. The colors popped. The one climax scene was in red. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Batman's spitting off jokes while he's almost getting murdered by Superman.
Yeah.
It's
just, that hurt.
Yeah.
It made no sense. Like, there was just, it was out of character. Like,
it's like,
it's worse to me.
Do you think that Whedon truly believe that was like going to work, or do you think that he was just like, hey, make this like Marvel, do the Marvel thing?
We'll never know what was him and what was the studio kind of mandating. Like there was Jeff Johns, who's like a famous DC writer behind the scenes. There's a bunch of different people and executives that were probably brought him in for a specific reason. Now, I'm not going to get into Whedon personally because I know that there's some personal stuff that people like talk about him being a jerk. But on the set of this movie, Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, there was this whole thing where they were doing an investigation about how Joss Whedon and Jeff Johns and John Berg treated them. It's a whole read. You can go look it up on Google. But long story short, I guess I don't know whether Whedon gets unfairly blamed for maybe the studio mandate. And again, I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm talking about him as the director of this movie.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a thing where he gets kind of the criticism thrown at him and maybe some of this stuff was mandated on him. But it is very much his style. If you look at the first Avengers movie, there was quips. It worked with those characters and it worked with the tone of that movie.
Right.
This did not, it just didn't work in that original. It just made no sense.
Yeah, and in some of the original Marvel like story building movies, like they were written as kind of almost comedies, like, you know, very witty scenes throughout. Whereas the comedy came out of nowhere and it was kind of jarring.
This cut, the Snyder version of it had some funny moments in it, but it felt more, I don't know, like it just felt more organic and natural. Like I'll be honest, I hated Flash in the cut of Whedon's cut in JOSStice League. I just couldn't stand him. And in this, I thought he was like the perfect blend of humor and kind of like he's a kid, you know, kind of thing. It just worked for me. And the same with like some of the other characters.
So yeah, why don't we skip to characters then? We talk about Cyborg and Flash and how they kind of didn't have stories in the original
had zero
cut.
Story.
Yeah. And then we talk about Batman and Wonder Woman, how they almost had this like romantic sexual chemistry in the first one, and that seemed like that's what they were going for. But in the new version, there's almost none of that. One awkward moment, but the story wasn't really driven on Batman and Wonder Woman, you know, recruiting. I mean, they were recruiting, but that wasn't like the full drive of the movie. It was kind of like a part of the first little bit of it.
I'll say this, like, I didn't really care for Cyborg in the first movie, but in this one, he was like the heart and soul of the movie. And I thought, Ray Fisher nailed it. Like, he was awesome. The actor was great.
Okay, I don't want to knock the actor. I'm going to seriously ask because I don't know. He seemed kind of like wooden at certain points, but he's also a cyborg. Is it because I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm serious. I'm going to ask this question. Does he act that way on purpose because part of his humanity was gone?
Yes. I mean, I don't know. Like, if you look at what happened to him, like from a character development standpoint, you know, his mom died in that car crash. His dad wasn't there. He blames his father for what happened.
But he was basically reborn through the mother box, right?
Right.
So, like, maybe part of his is like, is that a character thing that his acting is a little no pun intended, robotic?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was the direction that he got to. Like, I don't know that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I don't want to knock him because I thought he did well, and he's also like a very young actor. Yeah, like, I didn't think he was bad in any sense, but I thought some of it was part of the pun robotic. But maybe it was a conscious choice, in which case he did a great job. I liked him. I mean, I thought he was really good. And I did too. I couldn't see anybody else doing it. I'd rather it be a younger unknown versus another name. I thought it worked well, and like the fact that he kind of brought people together in a weird way too. He was sort of that heart and soul. And then what do you think about Flash? Because Flash I like the Flash just as a comic fan. Like, he's one of my favorite characters. And in the original cut, I just was like, man, really disappointed. I just didn't like the casting. I didn't like the character. They really gave him a lot to work with, I feel. Yeah. Did you get a lot from that? Oh, I thought he popped off the screen. And I loved him. I thought he was good. His whole, like, it was like an origin story, like, within a second of him saving the girl. It's kind of, okay, this is what he does. This is his powers. He's trying to get a job in a pet store. It's like kind of who he is in like a 5-minute circle here. I mean, and listen, the true comic fan in me would say, well, that's not Barry Allen. That's more Wally West, right? I didn't care. See, I didn't even know there were two of them. I didn't care. Like, I don't know. When it comes to these movies, like, I'm not one of those like
people that's like, oh, how are they gonna do this? Like, I just don't care because the fact that it's even happening is cool to me. So for the most part, I don't know. I'm the type of person that watches these movies with a really open mind, and I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I'm getting to watch this on the screen. Like, even then, when JOSStice League came out, I enjoyed it. Like, at the time, I wasn't like, this is the worst movie ever. Like, I didn't like it retroactively, but at the time it was fine. But what do you think about Ben Affleck as Batman? Because I know that you're not usually a fan. He won me over in BVS. I wasn't a fan of the casting in the beginning, but I want to know, like, did your mind change this time around?
See, we go back a couple episodes. We did Batman Forever, and we ranked Batman's, this and that and the other suits.
Did he change your ranking?
Bruce Wayne's. No, he's still like just barely above Clooney to me.
Really?
So yeah, and I want to get this clear. I think Ben Affleck is a good actor, a very good actor. It has nothing to do with his ability. It's just when I see him running around in the Batsuit, I don't know, like he just doesn't. He moves oddly. Like I don't know. He just doesn't. I don't think he has it. I don't think he has it. Yes. Maybe it's the Batsuit. Maybe he's too wide. I don't know.
He's jacked.
He doesn't
I don't know.
Strike me as Bruce Wayne. It's just something about him.
I liked him. I don't know. I'm a fan.
I don't know.
I'm a fan.
Like, he did fine. Like he's not like he doesn't take away. All right.
I'm a fan.
He doesn't take away.
What about Jeremy Irons as Alfred? Because I think he's criminally underrated. I love him.
Great actor. That's Jeremy Irons. That's Jeremy Irons. It's not Alfred.
Man, get out of here.
Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons are running around pretending to be Batman.
They're in Halloween.
And Alfred for Halloween. That's what it looks like to me.
It's kind of like they're acting.
Yeah. It's like, why don't you guys go make a movie? Why are you guys running around in costumes?
No, I think the cool thing, and maybe I just like the dynamic between the two of them because, it's better than the old feeble Alfred from like the original trilogy, back in the...
I like him. I don't even know the guy's name.
The butler guy?
Yeah, I like him.
One,
Master Bruce.
That guy's so old. And Michael Caine is really good too. But I kind of like that Jeremy Irons seemed like a tactician. Like he almost seemed like, he was in like the SAS or something, like in some of the comics, there's some storylines where you've got Alfred as basically like a Secret Service type of guy or like a special forces. Mm-hmm. I liked him. Go ahead.
I'll contradict myself here, but I'll say this. I think having a big name actor be Batman in this movie with other big name actors around them, but not quite as big as him, that kind of works for the leadership. Like him looking like a leader. Yeah. Oh, there's Ben Affleck. He's leading he's the lead of the movie.
He's got the clout.
It makes sense. But like strictly from put the guy in the suit, he's Batman, put him in the boardroom, he's Bruce Wayne, or he's acting like a snooty rich guy, I just don't see it.
I don't know. I'm a fan. What about Commissioner Gordon? So before we move on to maybe some of the other characters, what about Commissioner Gordon, J. Jonah Jameson, or should I say that?
I think he's a traitor. That's J. Jonah Jameson. What's he doing in a DC movie?
I don't care so much about that. I just thought
why you got a flip flop?
J.K. Simmons to me is J.K. Simmons. So similar to how you feel about Ben Affleck in a suit, I feel like it's J.K. Simmons playing dress up as Commissioner Gordon, and I didn't like the casting because he's too quippy. He's too I don't know. It doesn't work for me too much.
He should be more, I don't know, slower, pained, hardcore.
So what did you think of Aquaman? Because the cool thing about this was, if you look at the timeline, I think it precedes the Aquaman solo movie. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing I thought was Amber Heard had a British accent in this and not in the Aquaman solo movie. But did you like, Jason Momoa as Aquaman? Did it, I think you liked the Aquaman movie, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was more the same. I think he's a really badass character. And I'm a fan of him just having like this, I don't know, just forever chip on his shoulder, mad at the world, unsure of who he is, doesn't want to go to Atlantis, hates Atlantis, but kind of resents the humans as well. Yeah. Like he resents saving people, like just here, save another one, don't be an asshole next time, that kind of thing.
Anytime you get a Willem Dafoe sighting, I'm not gonna be upset about that either.
It just that really throws me for a loop.
He had the long flowing like metal hair this time too, which was pretty cool.
No, I don't think there was that much difference really between the two cuts of the movie for him. Save maybe he was a little more bro-ish during the fight scenes.
There was the way that he got recruited was a little different too. and I don't mean to skip over Wonder Woman either, by the way. Like we didn't really talk much about her, like the differences. I mentioned she's more badass in this, but I liked her arc, and I liked the whole Amazon storyline to me too. That was pretty cool. I liked the whole thing with like them trying to save the mother box in the beginning, the fight and all that.
Yeah.
I think, for her, you're right, Aquaman's wasn't much different. I think Wonder Woman's was a lot different.
Yeah, I thought her fight scenes were clearly the best.
They were awesome.
She was the best fighter of the movie.
The whole scene with her in the what is it, the museum, I guess, where the guys were trying to
the terrorist
Bruce Bolton,
yeah.
the guy from Game of Thrones, was trying to blow the place up. Like the way that she moved, it reminded me of Feora from the Kryptonian from Man of Steel. How quickly she moved, and I just thought, man, like that's really awesome. She had really cool moves. She looked cool as hell, and the way that she was fighting was just awesome. It looked like a superhero to me. It was really cool. What did you think of Superman? He was barely in it, but did you think Henry Cavill? What do you think of him?
Yeah, I didn't really think much of him at all. Like he did fine. Like I didn't. Yeah, there were differences between the two movies, but I thought his resurrection and his fight with the Justice League was, kind of similar. I think a few more things were added. Obviously, there were less jokes, but that's not on Cavill. Like Cavill was definitely not joking around.
I like the black suit.
Other than the "Do you bleed" comment was stripped away.
The black suit was awesome too. Yeah. I mean, that's like that's been the tease. That was the original tease of all of this whole thing, and that was pretty cool. And I mean, I get it. Like people are tired of evil Superman, so they don't want to see where this is maybe going or where it was going, and people are kind of tired of it with the Injustice stuff, like the video games and just all the comics of evil and Zack Snyder not letting him be heroic. Yeah. But I kind of liked him, and I thought it was cool, especially when he was going to get his suit, and you heard what's his name, Russell Crowe talking, and also Kevin Costner, and it was like dueling comments of his two like fathers. I thought that was really awesome.
Oh yeah, and speaking of awesome, what about the entire opening sequence?
Oh yeah, with the fact that he was getting like murdered.
Yeah, he was getting murdered from like a different perspective from the end of the first, or the end of Batman vs Superman, and like his voice kind of echoing shockwaves throughout the entire city.
Yeah,
basically, I guess activating the mother boxes.
I liked that aspect.
That's a great way to like introduce the mother boxes. Like as for me as a person who had no idea what the hell a mother box was, that's why Justice League was so damn confusing.
Well, it was interesting because if you look at the beginning, so you take the end of Man of Steel. The end of Man of Steel is the beginning of Batman v Superman, and the end of Batman v Superman is the beginning of this movie. So it kind of flows when you look at it together. And I thought that was really cool. And I think the Justice League beginning of this movie was like Batman telling jokes on a roof. I don't think it was
Superman being
the videotape
recorded
with
by
a really
kids.
bad mustache.
Yeah. Yes,
really
the famous
bad.
CG mustache. But like they didn't set up what the boxes were, and like that really confused the hell out of me.
It was
like and then this new one, and like I totally got it. Like, oh, this is actually what this is. Okay, cool.
I think it was really good, and maybe like I want to talk a little bit about Steppenwolf as a character here, because that to me is like one of the absolutely hugest differences. And I think what we should do is let's throw him through the villain scale.
Let's do it,
and we'll see how he comes out compared to some of the other stuff. But we'll talk about him throughout. So just start off with this dude's look. What do you think of him? And you can compare him to Justice League. Do you think he looked cool? Like on a 1 to 5 scale, what are you giving him?
He's probably getting a 5, just because first of all, his horns, horns are like the alien equivalent of a ponytail. If you have horns, you're definitely evil enough to get a 5 for look on the villain scale. But besides that, I don't know. You might know better than I do what it's called. Like his suit. Was it a suit or was it skin?
It was like armor.
That like prickled. It was like
the armor. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, in the comic, he's more of like a guy. Like he looks like more like a person, not like this weird alien. So I'm going to knock him on that because normally the helmet is what it is. I think he looked awesome. And especially the suit, the armor. I'm giving him a 4 here for this just because of the antler looking things were actually part of his head instead of his helmet. Like I don't know, I would prefer if that wasn't his actual head.
For authenticity, you've got the point. Okay.
But if you ask me, he's infinitely more badass than the Justice League version. And that scene where he gets shot with all the arrows and he just flexes his armor and they all break out was like awesome. It was one of the coolest scenes. I'm giving him a 4 for that. But I thought overall he looked infinitely better than the original version.
Definitely more badass. For
what
sure.
about his accommodations, his hideout and his lair?
I don't know, what was it? Some like old prison site or something?
It was like
or
an old hollowed out like
nuclear
nuclear.
Yeah.
It's like Chernobyl basically.
Yeah, I don't
is
know.
what it was.
2.5.
Dude, what?
Fuck. Come on.
He's in like
Been
nuclear
there, done
fallout.
that. Been there, done that.
Oh my god. I'm giving it a 4, but
You know?
I'm not going all the way 5. But anytime you're in like a hollowed out nuclear reactor,
Yeah,
like
I guess that's kind of cool.
you
but
withstand the radiation. And let me say this about the hideout and lair. The fact that his people from Apocalypse, you got Darkseid and Desaad communicating with him through that like melted piece of graphite or whatever it was, the reactor, was like, that was so cool to me.
oh,
the
okay.
fact that
Was
the metal was
that
melting.
was so that whole thing was a part of the site?
I thought so.
I thought like he built it or something. I don't know.
Because when they got in there, it was like melted. I don't know if that was actually the reactor, but it looked pretty damn cool. And the way that worked.
If the communication device was a part of the layer and it wasn't like modified by Steppenwolf and his people, then I might have to give an extra
You're
point.
bumping it up.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I'll leave you at a 2.5 right now,
Okay.
just for the
All right.
benefit of the doubt.
All right.
But what about anything else about where he went? Because he had a couple other places that he went. I mean, I don't know. I think his main digs was basically the nuclear reactor, right?
Yeah, man. That's pretty much it. I mean, that's what you would call it. I mean, otherwise, everything else was just kind of like a fight. Like
He's around.
It was around. It was like a what do you want to call it? Like an arena, a fight arena.
Right,
It wasn't
right.
necessarily his place. It was kind of where he just decided to do battle.
Maybe the meat and potatoes of this is his plan. So, is it a plan for domination, or is it more just a plan to maybe, stop being a sub boss, or maybe to stay a sub boss?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a sub boss now to Darkseid, but I guess his plan. You know what? Do we give him bonus points or do we take points away that his plan to steal the mother boxes only occurred when he realized Superman was dead?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Is that smart or is that being a coward?
I don't know if it signaled it. Hey, like they're gonna come get him. But his plan in general of like, I want to steal this world so I can prove my worth to my master. It's kind of weak, but it's also kind of badass in a way because you almost feel for him because he just wanted to go home.
Yeah,
he just wanted to go home. He's
So
been exiled.
It's kind of like a first step towards redemption for him, which I guess you have to take the first step before you make the first leap. So it's kind of necessary for him to kind of like do the subservient mission, so to speak. So I guess for him, I would only give it 2.5 because it's really not his plan; it's his master's plan.
That's. I'm giving him a 3.
Yeah.
But I think, he was trying, like the fact that he found the anti-life equation on Earth is pretty badass.
Bonus.
But was he looking? I don't know. And really he's trying to steal the word for Darkseid. He's got to steal, thousands of these worlds to get back home. So not very good. And where I'm really going to knock him is the henchmen, because I think the parademons, so the parademons are kind of badass because they're like enslaved people from other worlds and stuff like that. In lore, it's pretty cool. But I thought they were pretty weak in this, just in general in the movie.
It's like your standard Foot Clan putties.
I'm giving them a 2.
There's 1,000 of them for all to get slaughtered. And let me ask you this: so okay, they're parademons. So I guess they're dead already.
Yeah, sort of.
So is there any like backlash for Batman killing a bunch of them?
Hey, anytime Batman kills anybody, you're going to get a lot of people upset.
Yeah. I mean, is there a morality thing with Batman killing non-humans? Like, I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Anytime you get Batman killing anything, you're going to make a lot of people upset. It's just a thing that happens because it's like his one rule that he really shouldn't be breaking.
You think Batman like throws paint on women that wear fur coats? Murder is murder. Is all life precious or just human life?
Be. I think the henchmen here. My whole thing with the henchmen here is they were kind of useless. Even though they shot Flash, when you think about it, that was actually a pretty good move.
Oh, yeah.
But he was able to run back in time. So he still was done. He did it.
Don't they smell the fear? Or don't they smell the boxes on people? I
don't know the rules of this.
I thought that's what
he
said. I thought that's what Steppenwolf said, that his parademons smell the information.
They can
And then
smell that.
They're like interrogators.
But I don't know if they can smell the fear anymore. I don't know if that's a Justice League thing and they cut the fear smelling down.
No, maybe fear was the wrong word. He said they can smell.
Well, they can trace the mother box, the signature.
They can smell the information, so they know who to kidnap and interrogate.
I think
that's something.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'm still going a 2 for the Parademons because I didn't get like a sinister feeling from them.
Yeah, they were.
I don't know. I think so. If I total up the scores, you had a 5 for look, 2.5 for hideout, 2.5 for plan, 2 for henchman. That gives you, what is it, 12? And then I'm about 13 because I had 4, 4, 3, and 2. I don't remember how this compares to it, but I feel like it's lower than what I would have expected for how badass I thought he was during the movie.
But he's a sub boss himself. He's a glorified sub boss.
That's true.
And he runs a lot. He's a runner.
I gotta tell you, when his head
he
got
loves
chopped
to teleport
off,
away.
When his head got chopped off and it went through the boom tube or the portal back to Apocalypse, and you saw Darkseid, man. Like now we can't do this because obviously he's not part of Zack Snyder's Justice League. But if there's ever somehow a Justice League Part 2 and you get Darkseid in here, he's gonna break the scale.
Oh yeah,
because Darkseid is so badass to me, and the fact that he was even in this movie, like even for a minute. Like maybe you could say that the pre-marketing hyped it a little too much and maybe people thought he was going to be in it too much. But I thought the way that Darkseid was kind of set up is pretty awesome. So I don't know. I think you got a 13 and a 12. I thought he was infinitely better than the last movie. Mm-hmm. But before we wrap this up, I want to talk a little bit about maybe some of your favorite moments and just maybe the epilogue in general. And then what do you think of the Snyderverse trilogy just as a whole? Before we bore too many people here.
Yeah, no, I thought the epilogue was cool, but it also was like, it is what it is. It's like a glorified post-credits scenes, right?
Yeah. I
don't know, like it felt kind of like a tease to something that probably will never happen, right? So what's the point? The movie could have been 3:30 had he cut the epilogue.
I am not going to complain because you could have made this movie 7 hours and I still would have enjoyed it because I don't know if anything else is coming out ever again.
Right, but you're given badass information looking forward to things that probably aren't going to happen in a future movie.
But I like the way that they did it. I like that they did it as a Bruce Wayne dream versus this is actually happening. Like it's happening right now. We're watching it because it was better done that way because if it doesn't happen, it's a dream of what could happen versus... Like, especially when Flash was saying, hey, when I run close to the speed of light, things happen, weird things happen with time. And you had that nightmare tease in the Batman v Superman movie. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Cyborg saw it when he was shooting the box when they were trying to resurrect Superman, and then obviously the Flash as well. So it's like, probably going to come true.
Did you like the fact that they, like, because to me, I thought was really cool. It seemed like this Mad Max-esque, like, team up where, I mean, I'm going to ask you this, did Jared Leto redeem himself? But the fact that he was there, I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, people hate him and hate the thing, but I like the team up of Deathstroke, him, Cyborg, Flash. Like, it seemed cool to me. The concept of it, I liked. But did Jared Leto redeem himself to you?
He did, but he didn't have to redeem himself because I liked him in Suicide Squad. I liked his scumbag cyberpunk Joker from Suicide Squad. So no redemption
Joker?
Needed.
I was not a fan of that Joker, and I'm still.
I get it.
He was fine.
Like I get it. Like purists and people who love the comics. I'm sure it's a real piece of shit looking.
This one was
Joker.
Definitely much better, but I liked the idea of him and Batman kind of going at each other, and the fact that you got Deathstroke there with a mohawk is pretty awesome. Like I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, the whole like having the team up and you don't want to, and who's gonna stab who in the back, and the Joker's a piece of shit. Yeah, and like when's that gonna break? That's a cool movie to see. Yeah, and I'm afraid we'll never see it.
Well, let me ask you this, maybe to kind of wrap up where we're at. What do you think of the Snyderverse as a whole, kind of looking back on it now, knowing what you know about maybe Man of Steel all the way up to this movie? Do you feel like you can look back on it with fonder eyes? Do you feel like it sits a little differently to you now versus maybe how you saw it before? Not that you ever hated it, but maybe what do you think of yourself and how do you think other people might view it?
I kind of look at this movie on its own, even though it's true that one bleeds into the other, bleeds into the other. But, I only saw Man of Steel one time back in the theater way back and when. And as we said, I only saw parts of it because I didn't fall asleep.
I was just gonna say part of Man
even
of
though I
Steel.
liked it, right? But like, when did that movie come out? Freaking
Yeah, it was like 2013, I think.
2013. You know, I forgot what happened in that movie, and I don't know. Batman vs Superman's kind of murky as well. What happened there? I remember the end. I remember Martha, but like this movie,
Which one?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just all Marthas.
Why did you say that name?
Why did you say that name? But this movie to me stands out on its own. Like I feel like this movie very much could have been released. This 4-hour movie, not the 2-hour one, stands on its own to like you go in knowing, okay, I know who Batman is, I know who Wonder Woman is. Let's go. Let's get going. Superman's dead. All right, cool. Let's pick the story up.
You know what's cool about this movie versus some of those? I feel like I don't have to watch the whole thing to watch it again. And
That's true.
What I like about that is that it is in parts. And I even did it the other day. Like I was thinking, man, that was a pretty cool part. I just turned it on. I went to that part specifically and I kind of watched it. And it's in those episodic like titles. So what's kind of neat is if you're not in the mood for the beginning, which is kind of slow, you can just kind of watch the back half and say, man, I just kind of want to see all those fights again. Like I like that aspect of it. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that this movie did a great job of like, if you don't know who these characters are, you find out who they are within the 4 hours. Like even Batman, even Wonder Woman. Like for as well known as those two characters are, like there's no need for an intro story and you don't need one, and they are who they are on the screen within an hour of meeting them on screen. Same thing with Aquaman, Cyborg, and what's his face? I'm sorry, it's like
Flash.
It's 4 a.m. Flash. They have their origin stories told in this movie pretty quickly, but also effectively. We don't learn how Flash became the Flash, but you don't need to know. Just know it. Just know that he's
the Flash. He's
just
good.
know that he's the Flash.
Yeah.
And I think that what this 4-hour movie does is it kind of renders the other movies obsolete, even though they're okay by themselves. You can just watch this movie and have your full taste of the DC movies.
Would you watch a sequel if for some reason it came out?
Sure, why not? Absolutely.
Do you think a sequel will come out? There's rumors now. Apparently, WB's like thinking through this now.
I think there's a chance if this continues to grow legs, and if it, as we said in the beginning of this ep, I don't know how the numbers get pulled. If they can, equate subscriptions, unique subscriptions to this movie, if it's overwhelming, then they know there's a market for it. Sure, why not?
There's a huge fan pouring right now for Restore the Snyderverse. Apparently,
yeah. And if I don't think we said this explicitly in the beginning of this episode, but this was a redemption story for Snyder. This is Snyder clearing his name, saying, "Hey, man, screw you guys. If you give me the right amount of time, and by time I mean not only length of movie, but if you want, ask me to make 2 movies in one 2-hour setting. That's not possible. Look what I can do if I have the right amount of time."
Yeah.
I don't blame him for trying to make, 2 movies in one. I'll give him a pass for making a 4-hour movie this time.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm curious what you all think of this movie. Did you watch it on HBO Max? Do you have HBO Max? Did you sign up for HBO Max because of this?
What is HBO Max?
Do you want HBO Max? But I'm curious what, if you're listening to this show, did you like it? Did you watch it? Did you hate it just as much as you might have hated some of the other ones? Did it change your opinion on Zack Snyder? Send us an email, thelastrowpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our website, thelastrowpodcast.com. Listen to all of our back episodes. Send us a tweet at thelastropod, facebook.com/thelastropod, Instagram @thelastropod. I'm just so curious what other people think of this movie, and I hope people write in this week because I just need to know, like, did you like the length? Whatever. Just let us know what you think of this movie.
Did you like the girth of the movie?
What do you think of that?
We need to know.
We just need to know. And, I probably won't watch it again for a little while, but I might watch parts here. But I'm definitely excited to hear what other people think about the movie. And I'm sure we bored the hell out of you talking about Zack Snyder for, an hour and a half here. But, if you're tired of that or you didn't listen to this, we'll be back in 2 weeks on Thursday, April 8th with our next episode. And we hope to see you guys then.
Sure, if they're bored, they definitely won't be hearing this part of the episode. So I don't know who you're speaking to.
I should have said that in the beginning. Is anyone still listening to the show? How many people hit unsubscribe after we mentioned Jack Snyder?
Jack Snyder. These hacks don't know who the director is.